Has a relationship you treasured with a man you thought you knew ever just ended, leaving you feeling like the ground beneath you disappeared? One day, he's a huge part of your life, and the next, gone. No real explanation, no proper goodbye. Just this heavy silence and a million questions swirling in your head. You end up replaying everything, every little word, trying to figure out what on earth went wrong. But what if the real answers aren't about what was said or done, but about the complicated, often hidden, emotional stuff he was dealing with? Welcome. Today we're talking about something incredibly painful and confusing that, let's be honest, too many of us have gone through. The sudden, unexplained breakup. It's that awful moment you realize the man you thought was your person, the one you shared your dreams and secrets with, has just vanished, leaving you to pick up the pieces. If this has happened to you, you are so not alone in feeling bewildered. We are going to look at 10 of the biggest hidden emotional reasons why men sometimes abruptly end relationships. These aren't always the reasons they will tell you, or even fully get themselves, but they are powerful currents that can sink even ships that seemed steady. Now, this isn't about making excuses for ghosting or vanishing, but about shining a light on the possible whys. The hope is to help you find some understanding in all the confusion, and maybe, just maybe, start to heal. We'll try to get a glimpse into an emotional world that often stays a mystery, giving you some insights that might help make sense of what felt completely senseless. The first big one, and maybe the most basic, is a deep feeling of emotional disconnection. We all need connection. It's just part of being human. And men, just like women, look for deep emotional bonds in their relationships. But if a man consistently feels like he's not getting that emotional fulfillment, like he's not being heard, or like he and his partner are just on totally different pages, a gap can start to grow. Imagine this. He tries in his own way to share something that's bothering him. Maybe stress from work, a personal fear, or a quiet hope. But perhaps he gets a quick fix-it suggestion instead of real understanding. Or maybe it's brushed off or it just doesn't seem to register. He probably won't say, "Hey, I feel disconnected from you." Instead, this unmet need for emotional closeness starts to build a silent wall. It's not always about big, dramatic gestures. It's often in the small, everyday moments of feeling seen, heard, and truly gotten on an emotional level. When those moments just aren't there day after day, he might start to feel like he's in the relationship all by himself, even if you're right there next to him. This isn't always about a lack of love, but more like a lack of emotional nourishment. Over time, this emotional dry spell can get so bad that leaving feels like the only option. He might not even consciously think of it as emotional disconnection at first. It might just feel like a nagging dissatisfaction, a sense that something's missing, or an inner restlessness. He might start to pull away slowly, share less, and seem more distant. This slow emotional retreat, if nobody notices or addresses it, can end in a sudden physical departure, leaving you completely blindsided because that connection was fading away quietly, under the surface. He vanishes, not because he suddenly stopped caring, but because in his emotional world, the connection had already died. Next up, let's talk about something huge and often way underestimated. The need to feel appreciated. It sounds simple, right? But when it's missing, it can really wreck a relationship. Men, like anyone else, want to feel that what they do, what they bring to the relationship, and just their presence is valued and noticed. When a man constantly feels like his efforts are invisible or even worse, taken for granted, it can really eat away at his desire to keep investing in the relationship. Try to see it from his side. Maybe he's the one who always makes sure the bills are paid, or he's the one everyone calls to fix things. Or maybe he puts real thought into planning dates he hopes you'll love. These could be his ways of showing love and commitment. If these things are always met with a shrug, or if the only feedback he gets is criticism about what he isn't doing, a feeling of being invisible can creep in. He might start to think, does anything I do here even matter? Does she even see me? This isn't about needing a pat on the back every 5 minutes, but about feeling like he's seen as a contributing, valuable partner. Over time, feeling unappreciated can morph into feeling devalued, and that's a tough emotion to carry. It can breed resentment, which is like this quiet, slow poison in a relationship. He might not say this out loud. Sometimes the hurt of feeling invisible makes it even harder to speak up. Instead, he might start to check out emotionally, putting his energy where he does feel appreciated, maybe his job, his hobbies, or his friends. This emotional step back is often a sign of a physical one to come. The vanishing act in this situation can be a last, desperate shout about how unvalued he felt. It's like him saying, "Maybe now you'll notice I'm gone, because you didn't seem to notice I was here." It's a painful realization that the relationship for him had become a place where he felt his worth wasn't recognized. A really painful and often totally hidden emotional reason men vanish is the crushing weight of overwhelming shame or inadequacy. This is a particularly nasty emotion because it hits a man right at his core sense of self-worth and ability. Many guys are raised to be providers, protectors, and problem solvers. When they feel like they're failing at these things in the relationship, or believe they just can't make their partner happy, a deep sense of shame can really take hold. Picture this. His partner is unhappy a lot. Maybe it's because of outside stuff like work stress or personal issues, or maybe it's because of things within the relationship itself. If he takes this unhappiness on as his fault, thinking, "I'm not a good enough partner. I can't make her happy. I'm not meeting her needs." This feeling of inadequacy can become just unbearable. It's not just about feeling like he's not doing enough. It's about feeling like he is not enough. This is a quiet kind of torture. He's very unlikely to say, "I feel like a total failure as your partner, and it's destroying me." Instead, this shame just festers, chipping away at his confidence. He might start to see himself as fundamentally broken and not worthy of the relationship. To get away from this horrible feeling, he might pull back, becoming emotionally distant to protect himself from what feels like more failure. The relationship, instead of being a comfort, becomes a constant reminder of his supposed flaws. When the shame gets too much to handle, vanishing can feel like the only way out, a way to stop facing his own perceived failures every single day. He disappears, not because he's being malicious, but because he believes on some deep level that you'd be better off without him, or that he just can't keep facing what he sees as his own constant screw-ups. It's a tragic exit, driven by an internal pain he couldn't talk about or fix. Another really key emotional trigger is what psychologists call emotional flooding and overwhelm. This is what happens when a man gets hit with such intense emotions, whether it is during a huge fight, a really stressful period in the relationship, or just a barrage of his partner's strong feelings, that he just can't process it all and respond in a helpful way. Think of it like an emotional circuit breaker flipping off. Imagine a serious discussion turns into a loud, tearful argument. His partner is letting out a flood of emotions: anger, hurt, frustration. While his partner might be looking for him to engage, for him, the sheer intensity can feel like an attack. His heart might start racing, his thoughts get jumbled, and he literally can't think straight about what's being said. In this state, guys often go to one of two basic responses: fight or flight. If he's not the type to get aggressive, fight. His gut instinct will be to run, to shut down, pull away, or physically leave the situation just to get back some sense of calm and control. This isn't always about avoiding the actual issue, but more about escaping that overwhelming physical and emotional state. If these experiences of emotional flooding happen a lot, the relationship can start to feel like an unsafe, chaotic place. He might begin to dread emotional talks or any kind of conflict, linking them with this feeling of being swamped and losing it. He may not have the words or know how to say, "I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now, I need a break to process this." Instead, repeatedly feeling emotionally flooded can lead him to see the relationship itself as just too much. Vanishing, then, becomes a drastic way to protect himself, a way to permanently get away from a situation that consistently triggers this awful, dysregulating experience. He's not necessarily running from his partner, but from the unbearable feeling of being emotionally drowned. The fear of vulnerability or rejection is a really powerful, often subconscious driver that can lead a man to suddenly end a relationship. From a young age, a lot of men are taught by society to be strong, to keep their emotions in check, and to be self-reliant. So expressing vulnerability, showing fear, sadness, insecurity, or even really deep affection, can feel incredibly risky, almost like showing your weakest spot. This fear is often tangled up with a deep-seated terror of being rejected, criticized, or misunderstood if they actually dare to open up. Think about a man who's starting to develop truly deep feelings for his partner. This growing closeness naturally requires more vulnerability. He might want to share his fears, his dreams, his past hurts, but that ingrained message that men don't do that, or the fear that his partner might see him as weak, needy, or too much, can be completely paralyzing. He might have had bad experiences in the past where his vulnerability was met with dismissal or even ridicule, which only reinforces this fear. So, as the relationship moves towards a level of intimacy that needs more emotional openness, his internal alarm bells might start going off. Instead of leaning into that vulnerability, which feels terrifying, he might start to pull back. He could create distance pick fights or find reasons why the relationship won't work, all as subconscious ways to protect himself from the perceived threat of being hurt or rejected if he truly lets his guard down. The closer he gets, the more he has to lose and the scarier vulnerability becomes. In extreme cases, if this fear is really intense, vanishing can feel like a preemptive strike. He ends the relationship before his partner has a chance to reject his true, vulnerable self. He disappears not because he doesn't care, but because he cares so much that the thought of being hurt at that level of emotional exposure is just too overwhelming to face. It's a self-protective move, even if it's a destructive one, rooted in a fear he might not even be consciously aware of. While it can be a tough pill to swallow, a loss of attraction, both emotional and physical, is a real reason why men might decide to leave a relationship. Attraction is that spark, that glue that often kicks off and helps keep romantic connections going. It's not a fixed thing. It can change. But when it consistently fades, either physically or, just as importantly, emotionally, the relationship can start to feel empty or unfulfilling for him. Physical attraction, while often a big part at the start, can shift over time for all sorts of reasons. However, the emotional side of attraction is arguably even more vital for a relationship to last. Emotional attraction is about being drawn to your partner's personality, their mind, their sense of humor, their kindness, the way they make you feel inside. It's about that feeling of excitement, admiration, and deep connection. If this emotional spark starts to die down, maybe conversations become dull, shared laughter is rare, or that feeling of being a team disappears. He might start to feel like something crucial is missing. He might not know how to talk about this change, or he might feel guilty about it, especially if his partner is still very much invested. He might try to ignore it for a while, hoping the feelings will come back. But if the emotional vibe of the relationship stays consistently bland or negative and he just doesn't feel that pull anymore, that desire to connect on a deeper level, the foundation of the relationship can start to crumble for him. This isn't always about finding someone better. It's often an internal feeling that the current dynamic just isn't stimulating or emotionally engaging anymore. Vanishing in this situation can be a way to dodge that incredibly painful conversation of, "I'm just not feeling it anymore," a conversation that can feel awful to deliver. He might choose to disappear rather than face his partner with this deeply personal, and often hard to explain, shift in his feelings. Unresolved past trauma or emotional pain from earlier life experiences, especially from childhood or previous relationships, can cast a really long shadow and seriously impact a man's ability to keep a healthy, intimate connection going. These old wounds, if they haven't healed, can act like invisible tripwires in current relationships, setting off defensive reactions and making real emotional intimacy feel unsafe or even impossible. Imagine a man who grew up in a home with a lot of fighting, or who went through a painful betrayal in a past serious relationship. He might carry subconscious beliefs that relationships are bound to be unstable, that love always leads to pain, or that he can't ever fully trust anyone. Even if his current partner is loving and trustworthy, these past experiences can skew his perceptions. As the current relationship gets deeper and needs more trust and emotional investment, his old trauma responses might get triggered. He might start seeing threats where there aren't any, misinterpreting his partner's actions through the lens of his past pain, or find himself unable to fully open up because he's terrified of history repeating itself. This isn't about his current partner. It's about the ghosts of his past that he hasn't managed to shake. He might not even consciously link his current struggles to these old wounds. All he knows is that he feels anxious, mistrustful, or has an urge to bolt when things get too close. Pulling away emotionally in these cases is a way to protect himself, an attempt to stop himself from reliving the pain he went through before. Vanishing can be the ultimate act of self-preservation from this viewpoint, a desperate attempt to escape the triggering situation and the return of unbearable past emotions. He disappears because the present closeness has accidentally poked an old, unhealed wound, and he doesn't have the tools or awareness to handle it in a healthier way. A persistent communication breakdown is like a slow leak in a tire. Eventually, the relationship just can't go anywhere. Good communication is the absolute lifeblood of any healthy partnership. When a man consistently feels like he's not being heard, like he's misunderstood, or like he just can't express his needs, thoughts, and feelings in a way that gets through and is acknowledged, huge frustration and resentment can build up. Think about the everyday interactions. Maybe he tries to explain his side of things, but feels like he's constantly being cut off, dismissed, or that his words are getting twisted. Or perhaps he finds it hard to put his emotions into words, and when he tries, he's met with impatience or criticism. He might feel like he has to walk on eggshells, choosing his words super carefully to avoid a fight, or he might just give up trying to share what's really going on inside him. This isn't just about not being able to talk about problems. It's about not having a safe space to be truly open and honest. When communication lines are blocked or just don't work well, small misunderstandings can blow up into major fights, and needs don't get met simply because they were never properly communicated or heard. Over time, this ongoing inability to connect through real talk leads to a sense of being alone within the relationship. He might feel like he's with someone, but not truly with them. The silence, or the constant miscommunication, becomes a fertile ground for bitterness. Vanishing, then, can be the result of this long-term communication failure. It's the ultimate way of saying, I can't talk to you, I can't make you understand, so I'm just going to stop trying altogether. He might see leaving as the only way to get out of a dynamic where he felt constantly unheard and disconnected. Undiagnosed or unaddressed mental health struggles can seriously mess with a man's ability to connect emotionally and keep a healthy relationship going, sometimes leading to a sudden departure. Things like depression, anxiety disorders, or even the impact of ongoing chronic stress can fundamentally change how a man sees himself, his partner, and the relationship itself. Think about a man fighting depression. He might lose interest in things he once loved, including the relationship. He might feel a constant sadness, hopelessness, or an overwhelming emptiness. These feelings can make it incredibly tough to be present, loving, and engaged as a partner. Similarly, anxiety can show up as constant worry, irritability, or a need to control things, which can really strain the relationship. Society often pushes men to be strong, which means they are less likely to recognize these struggles as actual mental health issues or to go get help. They might try to hide what they're going through, afraid of being judged or seen as weak. This internal battle, combined with the symptoms of whatever they're dealing with, can lead to significant emotional withdrawal and isolation. He might not understand what's happening to him, or he might feel ashamed of it. The relationship can become another source of pressure or a reminder of how he's failing to be the partner he thinks he should be. In some cases, vanishing might feel like a desperate attempt to cope with the overwhelming internal chaos. He might leave because he just doesn't have the emotional energy to keep the relationship going while struggling so intensely, or because he mistakenly believes his partner would be better off without him and his issues. It's an exit often driven by pain and confusion, not by a lack of care. Sometimes, a man ends a relationship because of this internal pull towards personal growth or a significant life change that he feels just can't happen within the current partnership. This isn't necessarily about something being wrong with the relationship or his partner, but more a deep-down feeling that he's outgrown the dynamic, or that his path to figuring himself out means he needs to walk a different road, maybe alone for a while. Imagine someone who's gone through a period of really intense self-reflection, maybe sparked by a big life event, a career shift, or just hitting a certain age or stage in life, He might develop new priorities, new values, or a whole new vision for his future that just doesn't seem to fit with the relationship as it is. He might feel that the relationship, while it was once great, is now unintentionally holding him back from growing or becoming the person he feels he needs to be. This can be incredibly tough because he may still care a lot for his partner, but that drive for personal evolution or a different life path becomes all-consuming. He might feel a profound need for independence, for new experiences, or to explore parts of himself that he feels have been dormant. Trying to explain this can be extremely hard, as it can easily sound like, "It's not you, it's me," which often feels like a tired old line, even if it's genuinely true in this case. He might be terrified of hurting his partner deeply by explaining that his own journey is pulling him away. Vanishing, while so painful for the person left behind, can, in his mind, feel like a less confrontational way to make a necessary, though difficult, break. It is a departure driven by an internal compass, that S pointing him in a new direction, even if that direction means leaving behind a relationship that was once really important to him. As we've gone through these 10 emotional reasons, a couple of big themes pop up. One is the huge impact of societal pressures and what we often call traditional masculinity. So many men are taught to bottle up their emotions, to steer clear of showing vulnerability, and to think that asking for help means they're weak. This often leads to what we could call silent suffering, where unhappiness, pain, or confusion are just dealt with internally, boxed away instead of being talked about openly in the relationship. They might not have the emotional words or feel like they have permission to say what they're really feeling. This often creates a devastating cycle of disconnection. One partner, often the man, starts to pull away emotionally for one or more of the reasons we've discussed. The other partner then senses this withdrawal and might react with confusion, hurt, or by trying to connect even harder, which ironically can make the man pull back even more. He feels overwhelmed or misunderstood. She feels rejected or abandoned. And the gap just gets wider until it feels impossible to cross. The vanishing act is often the tragic end result of this quiet, unaddressed emotional drift, where problems were maybe sensed but not truly understood or faced by either person until it was too late. Ghosting, which is a common way of vanishing, is often a tactic to avoid direct emotional confrontation, and it usually stems from these ingrained patterns of avoiding emotions. Figuring out the emotional side of relationships is tricky, and going through an abrupt breakup can be unbelievably painful and leave you reeling. If you've been through this or if any of these reasons hit home for you, please know you're not the only one. I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Sharing your story can be really healing for you, and it can also help other people who are going through something similar. What resonated with you the most? Have you experienced one of these reasons firsthand? Let's try to build a supportive space here. And if you found this information helpful, please give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe for more content on understanding relationships and emotional stuff. Understanding these hidden emotional reasons why a man might vanish from a relationship isn't about pointing fingers or making excuses for hurtful behavior. It is really about trying to get a deeper understanding of the complex emotional worlds that men live in, often silently. Reasons like emotional disconnection, feeling unappreciated, overwhelming shame, fear of vulnerability, or unresolved trauma show us that breakups are rarely as sudden as they feel to the person left behind. They're often the result of a slow internal wearing away that wasn't talked about, or maybe wasn't even fully recognized by the man himself. While there is no magic answer or quick fix when you are left wondering why, hopefully, these insights offer a bit of clarity or a new way of looking at things. The lack of closure is agonizing, but try to remember this. His departure, especially if it was a vanishing act, often says more about his own internal struggles, his way of communicating or not communicating, or his emotional limits than it does about your worthiness of love and respect. Your job now is to focus on your own healing, on rebuilding your sense of self, and on looking for relationships where emotional honesty and open communication are valued by both people. You absolutely deserve a love that is communicative, respectful, and emotionally present. Thanks so much for joining me today. Take good care of yourselves.